what's up you guys, it's Dorothy and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, comment down below what you want to see in the future, click that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on my post notifications. That way you guys get notified every single time I upload a video. I'm just going to readjust myself here. I forgot my TV was on, so if you guys noticed that in the last video too, oh, this is going to fall over. If you noticed that in the last video like I just did, I'm watching a tattoo cover-up show and I forgot my TV was on. So, but anyways, we're going to go into part 2 of chapter 1 of One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. So let's get right into this video. It may contain sensitive topics and foul language. If you do not wish to continue, please click off the video now. You have been warned. Cooper. Monday, September 24th, 3:05 p.m. My hand hurts within minutes. It's pathetic, I guess, but I can't remember the last time I wrote anything longhand. Plus, I'm using my right hand, which never feels natural no matter how many years I've done it. My father insisted I learned how to write right-handed in 2nd grade after he first saw me pitch. Your left arm's gold, he told me. Don't waste it on crap that doesn't matter, which is anything but pitching as far as he's concerned. That was when he started calling me Cooperstown, like the Baseball Hall of Fame. Nothing like putting a little pressure on an 8-year-old. Simon reaches for his backpack and roots around, unzipping every section. He hoists it into his lap and peers inside. Where the hell is my water bottle? No talking, Mr. Keller, Mr. Avery says without looking up. I know, but my water bottle's missing and I'm thirsty. Mr. Avery points toward the sink at the back of the room. Its counter crowded with beakers and petri dishes. Get yourself a drink quietly. Simon gets up and grabs a cup from a stack on the counter, filling it with water from the tap. He heads back to his seat and puts the cup on his desk, but seems distracted by Nate's methodical writing. Dude, he says, kicking his finger against the leg of Nate's desk. Seriously? Did you put those phones in our backpacks to mess with us? Now Mr. Avery looks up, frowning. I said quietly, Mr. Keller. Nate leans back and crosses his arms. Why would I do that? Simon shrugs. Why do you do anything? So you'll have company for whatever you screw up for the day? For whatever your screw up of the day was? One more word out of either of you and it's detention tomorrow, Mr. Avery warns. Simon opens his mouth anyways, but before he can speak there's a sound of tires squealing and then a crash of 2 cars hitting each other. Addie gasped and I braced myself against my desk like somebody just rear-ended me. Nate, who looks glad for the interruption, is the first one to his feet towards the window. Who gets into a fender bender in the school parking lot, he asks. Rowan looks at Mr. Avery like she's asking for permission, and when he gets up from his desk, she heads to the window as well. Addie follows her, and I finally unfold myself from my seat. Might as well see what's going on. I lean against the ledge to look outside, and Simon comes up beside me with a despairing laugh as he surveys the scene below. 2 cars, an old red one and a nondescript gray one, are smashed into each other at a right angle. We all stare at it in silence until Mr. Avery lets out an exasperated sigh. I better make sure no one is hurt. He runs his eyes over all of us and zeroes in on Browen as the most responsible of the bunch. Miss Rojas, keep this room contained until I get back. Okay, Browen says, casting a nervous glance toward Nate. We stay at the window watching the scene below, but before Mr. Avery or another teacher appears outside, both cars start their engines and drive out of the parking lot. Well, that was anticlimactic, Simon says. He heads back to his desk and picks up his cup, but instead of sitting, he wanders to the front of the room and scans the periodic table of elements poster. He leans into the hallway like he's about to leave, but then he turns and raises his cup like he's toasting us. Anyone else want some water? I do, Addie says, slipping into her chair. Get it yourself, Princess, Simon smirks. Addie rolls her eyes and stays put, while Simon leans against Mr. Avery's desk. Literally, huh? What'll you do with yourself now that homecoming's over? Big gap between now and senior prom? Addie looks at me without answering. I don't blame her. Simon's train of thought almost never goes anywhere good when it comes to our friends. He acts like he's above caring whether he's popular, but he was pretty smug when he wound up on the junior prom court last spring. I'm still not sure how he pulled that off unless he traded keeping secrets for votes. Simon was nowhere to be found on homecoming court last week, though. I was voted king, so maybe I'm next on his list to harass or whatever whatever the hell he's doing. What's your point, Simon? I ask, taking a seat next to Addie. Addie and and aren't close exactly, but I kind of feel protective of her. She's been dating my best friend since freshman year, and she's a sweet girl. Also, not that kind of person who knows how to stand up to a guy like Simon, who just won't quit. She's a princess and you're a jock, he says. He thrusts his chin toward Browen, then at Nate. And you're a brain, and you're the criminal. You're all walking teen movie stereotypes. What about you? Browen asks. She's hovering near the window, but now goes to her desk and perches on the top of it. She crosses her legs and pulls her dark ponytail over one shoulder. Something about her is cuter this year. New glasses, maybe longer hair. All of a sudden, she's kind of working this sexy nerd thing. I'm the omniscient narrator, Simon says. Browen's brows rise above her blank frames. There's no such thing in teen movies. Ah, but Browen. Simon winks and chugs his water in one long gulp. There is such a thing in life. He says that like a threat, and I wonder if he's got something on Browen for that stupid app of his. I hate that thing. Almost all my friends have been on it at one point or another, and sometimes it causes real problems. My buddy Luis and his girlfriend broke up because of something Simon wrote, though it was a true story about Luis hooking up with his girlfriend's cousin, but still, that stuff doesn't have to be published. Hallway gossip is bad enough. And if I'm being honest, I'm pretty freaked at what Simon could write about me if he put his mind to it. Simon holds up his cup, grimacing. This tastes like crap. He drops the cup and I roll my eyes at his attempt at drama. Even when he falls to the floor, I still think he's messing around, but then the wheezing starts. Browen's on her feet first, then kneeling beside him. Simon, she says, shaking his shoulder, are you okay? What happened? Can you talk? Her voice goes from concerned to panicky, and that's enough to get me moving, but Nate's faster, shoving past me and crouching next to Browen. A pen, he says, his eyes scanning Simon's brick-red face. You have a pen. Simon nods wildly, his hand clawing at his throat. I grab the pen off my desk and try to hand it to Nate, thinking he's about to do an emergency tracheotomy or something. Nate just stares at me like I have two heads. An epinephrine pen, he says, searching for Simon's backpack. He's having an allergic reaction. Addie stands and wraps her arms around her body, not saying a word. Browen turns to me, face flushed. I'm going to find a teacher and call 911. Stay with him, okay? She grabs her phone out of Mr. Avery's drawer and runs into the hallway. I kneel next to Simon. His eyes are bugging out of his head. His lips are blue. He's making horrible choking noises. Nate dumps the entire contents of Simon's backpack on the floor and scrambles through the mess of books, papers, and clothes. Simon, where do you keep it? He asks, tearing open the small front compartment and yanking out 2 regular pens and a set of keys. Simon's way past talking, though. I put one sweaty palm on his shoulder, like that'll do any good. You're okay. You're gonna be okay. We're getting help. I can hear my voice slowing, thickening like molasses. My accent always comes out hard when I'm stressed. I turn to Nate and ask, you sure he's not choking on something? Maybe he needs the Heimlich maneuver, not a freaking medical pen. Nate ignores me, tossing Simon's empty backpack aside. Fuck, he yells, slamming a fist on the floor. Do you keep it on you, Simon? Simon! Simon's eyes roll back in his head, and Nate digs around in Simon's pockets, but he doesn't find anything except a wrinkled Kleenex. Sirens blare in the distance as Mr. Avery and 2 other teachers race with Browen, trailing behind them on her phone. We can't find his EpiPen, Nate says tersely, gesturing to the pile of Simon's things. Mr. Avery stares at Simon, a slack-jawed horror for a second, and then turns to me. Cooper, the nurse's office has EpiPens. They should be labeled in plain sight. Hurry. I run into the hallway, hearing footsteps behind me at the fade as I quickly reach the back of the stairwell and yank the door open. I take the stairs 3 at a time until I'm on the first floor and weave through the few struggling students until I get to the nurse's office. The door's ajar, but nobody's there. It's a cramped little space with an exam table up against the windows and a big gray storage cabinet looming to my left. I scan the room, my eyes landing on 2 wall-mounted white boxes with red block lettering. One reads emergency defibrillator and the other emergency epinephrine. I fumble at the latch on the second one and pull it open. There's nothing inside. I open the other box with the plastic device with a picture of a heart. I'm pretty sure that's not it, so I start rummaging through the gray storage cabinet, pulling out boxes of bandage and aspirin. I don't see anything that looks like a pen. Cooper, did you find them, Miss Grayson? One of the teachers who entered the lab with Mr. Avery and Browen barrels into the room. She's panting hard and clutching her side. I gesture toward the empty wall-mounted box. They should be right They are right, but they're not. Check the supply cabinet, Miss Grayson says, ignoring the Band-Aid boxes scattered across the floor that prove I've already tried. Another teacher joins us as we tear the office apart as the sound of sirens gets closer. We've opened the last cabinet. Miss Grayson wipes a trickle of sweat off her forehead with the back of her hand. Cooper, let Mr. Avery know we haven't found anything yet. Mr. Contos and I will keep looking. I get to Mr. Avery's lab at the same time as paramedics do. There are 3 of them in navy uniforms, 2 pushing a long white stretcher, 1 racing ahead to clear the small crowd that's gathered around the door. And I wait until they're all inside, and I slip in behind them. Mr. Avery slumped next to the chalkboard, his yellow dress shirt untucked. We couldn't find the pens, I tell him. He runs a shaking head through his thin white hair as one of the paramedics stabs Simon with a syringe, and the other 2 lift him onto the stretcher. God help that boy, he whispers, more to himself than to me, I think. Addie standing off to the side by herself, tears rolling down her cheeks. I cross over to her and put an arm around her shoulder as the paramedics maneuver Simon's stretcher into the hallway. Can you come along? One asks Mr. Avery. He nods and follows, leaving the room empty except for a few shell-shocked teachers and the 4 of us who started detention with Simon barely 15 minutes ago by my guess, but it feels like hours. Is he okay now? Addie asks in a strangled voice. Brown clasps her phone between her palms like she's using it to pray. Nate stands with his hands on his hips, staring at the door as more teachers and students start trickling inside. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say no, he says. That's the end of chapter 1. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.